Marisa, thank you for coming to the Sun. We're happy to have you here for this forum. This is Marisa DeFranco. She's one of 3 candidates running for the Democratic congressional nomination in the 6th District. So we're happy to have you here. Marisa, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, thank you very much for having me to the Little Sun and for covering this race. I am an immigration attorney. I've been practicing for almost 2 decades in the district. I've had my own practice for 17 years, representing small businesses on Main Street, families, asylum seekers, and children in foster care. And that is my background.
And you mentioned you're working on cases right now during the campaign?
Yeah, I am actually. I am a full-time worker. I'm the only candidate to my knowledge who is working full-time, not being paid a taxpayer salary, of course, but earning all my own money myself, because I'm a real person. And quite frankly, to run for office in this country, you shouldn't have to quit your job and put your mortgage and your obligations and your family in peril in order to represent and advocate for the people. I strongly believe that, and of course there are some disadvantages to that because it leaves me with less time to campaign or do things like raise money, but that also leaves me, I spend most of my time therefore not doing those traditional things that all of the big money candidates do, but instead actually talk to people on the local level, which is actually what I do in my daily job as well, is talk to real people, have them come into my office and solve problems. And Jim, this is the whole reason why I'm in this race.
Well, why is this so important to you? 2 years ago, you tried to get on the ballot.
That's right.
And there was some controversy there with the Democratic Party.
Yes.
And now you're coming back, and it seems like the Democrats are still trying to ignore you. And I just heard about a poll that was taken by the Democratic National Committee, which left you off the poll.
Yes.
And it's like, and I just have to say this because they claim there's a war against women in the Republican Party.
Right.
And why would they do this to keep you off the poll results? They had the 2 other Democratic candidates in that poll, but they didn't have you.
Well, quite frankly, it's baffling because I am the only candidate thus far who's turned in her signatures to qualify for the ballot. So I'm the only one on the ballot, technically, and they left me out of the poll. And I don't understand or pretend to understand the machinations that they involve themselves in, but they cannot, the Democratic Party, I will hold their feet to the fire. And all of the things they say, that they support women and the war on women. And I'm not just, Jim, the only woman in this race. I'm a woman who has a lengthy and deep record of supporting women, fighting for women's rights, being a leader in women's organizations and other organizations like the Massachusetts Bar Association. I have talked the talk and walked the walk when it comes to pay equity. I was a commissioner on the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, where I spearheaded the fight for pay equity. And so I'm not just any woman that the Democratic Party can push around. I'm a woman who's made my bones fighting for women's rights and children's rights and men's rights and immigrants' rights. So I don't know why, but
I don't want to belabor the point, but it's confounding. You know, you seem very intelligent. You've been in the party.
Yes.
And why they would do something like this. I mean, usually, you'd be gaining the support from the party, at least to run and make it a competition of ideas. But it seems they want to exclude you, and I just don't know exactly why they are trying to do that.
I don't either, but I could offer you my best educated guess could be that perhaps they're afraid that my numbers might be better than they're hoping they are, and that it might show that people might not support the incumbent and they might support my independence nature and my willingness to buck the party. Because let's face facts, if I were polling at 2% or 3%, they would include me in the poll, because then it would show that I'm not a threat to the party establishment, to the machine, and their machine-backed candidate. So I thank them for ignoring me, because it's incumbent upon them now. The burden of proof, as we say in the legal field, is up to them to show why they would exclude me. They know I've been in the race since July of 2013. They know it. They know I knocked on doors for all of their women candidates, and I gave money from my own pocket, and I made the phone calls, and I supported not just women candidates, but other Democratic candidates up and down the ticket. So they will have to show the voters of the 6th District why they are engaging in the same anti-woman tactics Party that they were doing.
You know, I don't want to, like I said, let's move on now that we get that out of the way.
Sure.
But it's interesting that you are an immigration lawyer.
That's right.
And you have put forward one of the more practical and innovative plans for immigration reform. Well, I first heard of you on a radio show talk about this, and it almost sounded too practical.
Right.
Okay. Now, why don't you explain that to us? So, what the key points of that immigration reform plan?
Okay, great question. So the key part of my plan that differs from the Gang of Eight and any other plan out there is that I support a path to legalization. It is not a path to citizenship because they are very different things. And advocates want to say that everybody should automatically become a citizen. And I say, wait, you have two extremes. You have people who want everybody to be deported from the country. You have people that want to grant automatic citizenship within the next 3 to 5 years. Those are, quite frankly, delusional prospects. And what I mean when I say path to legalization, I think it brings together both ends of advocates that want to support immigrants who have been beneficial to our economy, who have been working with our employers, who have been paying taxes, have a crystal clean criminal record. And let me be very clear about that, because the Gang of Eight bill allows people to have some misdemeanors, and I would disagree with that. I think if we're, as a country, immigration is a benefit. It is a privilege. It is not a right. And so you have to have a clean record. Now we have to mesh that, the advocates who are supporting immigrants, and people who have a concern, quite frankly, that I also have a concern with security, securing our borders, and making sure that this plan does not generate the next generation of undocumented immigrants that big corporations lure here and bring here and then exploit their labor. And to do that, I think we create a path to legalization, a green card.
So would you get rid of all the visa programs?
No. This is just, so there's a bifurcated way of talking about immigration. So first is, what do we do with 11 million undocumented immigrants? And then how do we fix the worker-based immigration system to make sure that the flow remains legal and we do not create this illegal system again? So that's twofold. So the first one is, here's my proposition to undocumented immigrants. And I happen to know a lot more immigrants than anybody else in this race, and quite frankly, in Congress, because this is my venue. These are the people I work with. And I say to them, you can stay here. We're going to put you on a path to a green card. You're going to have to get behind everybody else. Everybody. I mean everybody that's waiting abroad for their immigrant visa, and you get at the end of the line. That is prospectively going to take 15 years. And then you're going to have a temporary status while you're waiting, so that's the encouragement for people to come out of the shadows and get legalized temporarily while they're on the path to a green card. But if you want to stay here, you want the American people to say, we recognize that you committed a civil infraction, you crossed the border, or you overstayed your visa. That was not the proper thing to do. But we as the American people, we are a forgiving people, and we recognize what you have given to the country as immigrants. But a green card is where it stops. As a penalty, you cannot become a citizen if you want to stay in the country and legalize. That doesn't foreclose the ability for you to become a citizen. Look, if you want a green card, you stay, you go through my path, it's 15 years, you get a green card, you can have a green card forever.
Can it be accelerated in any way? I mean, 15 years?
It could, if the Department of Homeland Security worked on all those other pending petitions in the backlog, absolutely it could be.
Okay, so they become productive citizens, they pay taxes.
Green card holders, yes, correct.
Yeah. And then they get all the other privileges and benefits.
That's right, of a green card holder. And that's that you keep your green card for the rest of your life. If you don't like the fact that you can't become a citizen through that plan, I have an option for you. You can return home to your country and you can go through the process that way, eventually leading to citizenship. Now, the reason people won't do that is because we have this 10-year bar, because as soon as they leave, they can't come back for 10 years. So I would propose a decrease of that bar for maybe between 2 to 4 years. So there still will be a penalty, because I think the people that are concerned with just giving it away and opening the doors and letting everybody legalize, there is a legitimate concern that if we don't fix this problem again, undocumented immigrants will still come, companies will still exploit their labor, and we're going to be back in the same position 10 years from now. So you have an option A, to stay. You don't want to go home to your country for many reasons. That's fine. You get your end result is a green card, and I will tell you, hands down, undocumented immigrants will be very happy with a green card.
Do most of the people who come to see you, are they undocumented?
Mostly they're legal, because some undocumented people will come to see me, and there's a very sliver of capability for me to help them legalize, and if I can, I do.
Why do you think that no sitting member of Congress has embraced your proposal?
Oh, because the advocates will not like it. I will get a lot of slings and arrows for my proposition, because people will think that it's too harsh on the undocumented immigrants, and it's not harsh at all. It's giving them the ability to live and work in America and pursue their American dream. If they want to become citizens, they can go back home and go through the process. But see, everybody says Republicans want cheap labor and Democrats want voters. And the big secret is that they both want both, because they're both beholden to the corporate interests who wrote this Gang of Eight bill, the big tech companies that suck up all the visas, so my small business guys and women can get the 1 or 2 or 3 that they want to grow their business and hire more U.S. workers. It's all beholden to the corporate interests who write this law, and they want to basically say, oh, look how good we are, we're going to give you citizenship. Meanwhile, Congress is giving it away on the work visas to all those big companies. Because the second part of my plan is we legalize this population, and then if people know that they can't come here, the purpose of keeping citizenship, holding citizenship back, is that people abroad will say, well, if I do things the wrong way, I can never, that will foreclose citizenship to me. It will make them think twice. And then the second part is to create a system where essential workers can be legally sponsored by U.S. employers who have to test the job market for U.S. citizen workers first and permanent residents. So they have to try to find a U.S. worker. We have the system right now, Jim, for the bachelor's level.
Okay, how many of the 11 million who are here undocumented do you think would sign on to your plan?
80%.
Really?
Absolutely, hands down.
The other 20% we deport.
No, they would choose. They could choose to go, and come through.
Yeah.
They might if to answer your second question, which you sort of I hear in the background, they actually would leave if they knew their bar was only 2 or 3 years. Because, and I'm not talking about asylum seekers or anybody that would be in peril.
Okay.
That's a
People
whole
who've
other
committed
section.
Absolutely felonies?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No.
All right, we'll move on. Now, give me a segue to the corporations you talked about.
Sure.
Because also, in looking at your website, you talked about closing loopholes.
That's right.
On corporations, which would help the economy and create jobs. Okay, explain a little about how that would. Now, this is really an idea that other people have said, but then it never gets any traction.
Never get exactly. Right.
And it
Why
sounds
not?
good for candidates, but then when it gets in, you get in office, everybody's rolls over for
Right.
the corporate interest.
Yes, they do.
Why in your case would you wouldn't roll over for corporate interests?
I have a good answer for that, Jim. Because I am a clean money candidate, and I am taking no PAC money, not from corporations, not from unions.
Money.
I am. I'm actually doing pretty well, getting a lot of support. Grassroots. That's how.
Talk about closing the loopholes.
Okay. So no, I will not cave because I am beholden to no one except for the voters. That's what makes me special. That's what makes my candidacy special. And so corporate loopholes, there's many different ones, but I'll give you an example. A corporation can book the profits off of a patent, for example. offshore. They book the profits offshore, so they never pay U.S. tax on all of the income that is generated from those patents or from those certain deals. That's billions of dollars right there. And so that's one of the loopholes. I would, cut the strings. It's pretty simple, and that money comes back into the U.S. and corporations pay taxes on them. And then there's the other side of the loophole, which is the subsidies. And I've said this everywhere I've gone. Cut all corporate subsidies. Because I'm a small business person. I'm a small business candidate, and I work for small businesses and advocate their cases. And it is a definition of insanity for our Congress to give taxpayer dollars to big corporations, that small corporations then have to compete against those big corporations that the small businesses are paying. So basically, you're taking the money out of the small business person's pocket, you're putting it in the big corporation's pocket, and then adding insult to injury, big corporations can break the law, like I've seen with exploited immigrants. They pay $1 million or even billions of dollars in fines. It's a cost of doing business. Small business has to obey the rules to the millimeter because they cannot afford to be investigated by the federal government, investigated by state government. So you can't compete. It's anti-American, quite frankly, and it's anti-capitalist to use the taxpayer dollars to subsidize the big corporations to put all of the small businesses out of business on Main Street. And
You're just talking too much sense.
Sorry, I tend to do that. What can I say?
So all subsidies are the same. Like the farmers' subsidies, the farmer, that big pork bill that they passed.
That's the big pork bill that gave McDonald's a subsidy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ethanol that raises up all our other consumer prices, from the gas pump to buying corn on the cob and everything else.
Because all those are not going to family farms. Let's be real. They're going to agribusiness. They're going to McDonald's. They're going to Archer, Daniels, Midland, whatever their name is du jour. And it's all PAC money, and all corporate subsidies are created unequal.
So how does the 6th District benefit from all this
It
cutting?
doesn't.
And Marisa DeFranco
We have
in Congress.
benefits from the cutting.
From your representation.
If my plan, the current plan. For my representation is that it will break open the doors of revitalizing Main Street. It will put money back into the hands where it belongs, the small business person, the working person, and then they can create businesses on Main Street. It strengthens communities because it brings businesses back to the local level, and it actually fosters competition. I'm not saying that everybody's going to be equal, but everybody has to have the equal opportunity to compete in the market. And I defy any Republican or Democrat to criticize my plan because they're the ones that say that they believe in competition, they believe in free market. Well, I'm not sure the Democratic Party does believe in competition since they're doing things like keeping me out of the poll.
But those global companies are going to say, well, that gives us the competitive edge in the global marketplace. We're a U.S. company and it gives us the edge. That's why we need those subsidies.
No, we're the U.S. of A. And we don't get dictated to by global corporations. We tell them how it's going to be under our U.S. American law. And if they don't like the market, and call their bluff, because those big giant global corporations, what's one of their biggest markets? We are. We have the power, just like the people at the voting level have the power to turn out the creatures of Washington who keep doing the same old that gets us the status quo. We, the American government, have the power to tell the global corporations, you're going to do it our way because we're America. We're the country that built the Transcontinental Railroad. We're the country that won World War II. We're the country that sent men to the moon. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do business with us.
And Al Gore developed the internet.
Well, we'll leave Al Gore out of it.
Okay. So, job creation. What do you think? We haven't done very well since the recession.
No.
Everybody says the economy is improving, but still pockets of certain sectors of American society, teenagers can't get jobs, a lot of minorities aren't getting jobs. You've got about 12 to 14 million people who just walked away from the workforce. They're not even actively looking for jobs. The unemployment rate would be much higher if they were counted. So we're doing a little better, but what do you see as the biggest obstacles right now preventing America from taking off?
Congress. Both the establishment Republican and Democratic parties. And in this district, in the 6th district, people have either maintained or gone backwards. We're standing still, or have gone backwards, or people have lost their businesses entirely. So Congress, both parties, they're crushing innovation, they're crushing creativity, and they're crushing the energy that should be on Main Street, again, by subsidizing all of the big corporations, paying no mind to small business that folds after small business. Just drive down 114. I've driven down there recently. These businesses that have been there for 5 years plus 10 years, all of a sudden a restaurant's closed, a store's closed. Sal's Pizza in Middleton, I couldn't believe it. It just closed in Middleton, right? Yes. A staple. So, now we have to find somewhere new to get our pizza. But my point is that we're finding it harder. Small businesses are finding it harder and harder to compete on that level, again, because everything is structured by Congress, by both parties. Because everybody says, both parties are at loggerheads and they can't get anything done. And I'm here to basically blow the lid off that farce. Because what they're really doing in D.C. is they're play acting, a circus, going at each other. So the rest of us out here in the real world, frankly, get fed up, get apathetic. 89% of Americans are disgusted with the current Congress. This is a very high unfavorable rating, right? And so people opt out of the system. That way, the establishment parties can do exactly what they want and enrich all of their rich friends and have job security for both sides of the aisle. And it's a recipe that is not working for Main Street. And you said we're doing a little better. But quite frankly, a little better in unemployment numbers is that we're not Greece. And when America is saying we're doing better than Greece, Houston, we have a problem. We are supposed to be the best and the brightest and the job creators and the innovators, and to be doing a little better is not good enough. We need bold leadership and take the creatures out of Washington, send them back home, like the framers meant for people to go to D.C., do their job for, 5, 10, I'll even give you a term limit of 12 years. I think that's generous. But after that, do something constructive and go home. But if you haven't done anything constructive, then definitely go home.
So you're saying that if you were elected to the House of Representatives, you only serve a limited number of years?
That's right.
Before you go for the U.S. Senate seat?
No, I can't predict the future.
Okay.
No.
How long would you serve?
12 years is the maximum. Yes.
Okay. If you can't solve it by then,
then let someone else younger than I am, quite frankly, give it a whirl. Because I've said this before, is that if you're doing the job right in Congress and you're working your heart out every day like I do in my law practice, and you're pulling the hours and you're doing constituent work, you should be exhausted at the end of a decade. And 12 years is the outer limit, because you're really working for the people day in, day out. It takes a lot of energy to take in all that information, meet all these people, solve their problems. But they're not doing that because, as all the statistics show, they're spending 80% of their time raising money. Now, you know how all the politicians complain how bad it is and how terrible it is that they have to spend so much time? That's a big lie. You know why?
I don't think anyone in Congress has ever died of exhaustion.
Well, this is but it's a big lie that they resent spending 80% of the time raising money because, number one, it prevents them from having to meet with constituents and solve their problems. And number two, it reduces their voting record, so then they have no accountability.
Campaign finance is a big issue.
Absolutely.
Campaign finance is a big issue. But going back to the 6th district, okay. Say you were in Congress, okay, representing the 6th district in 2009, okay, which at that time was the 3rd district, but okay,
right.
All right. And the president, who had just been elected, comes out with a historic landmark bill called the Affordable Care Act. He presents you with 2,100 pages of a revolutionary plan that is going to bring access to health care to more than 90% of the American people. What do? Do you vote for it? Do you read the bill?
I say, number
Okay.
one, prove to me that it's going to bring affordable care to 90%
Now,
of people.
Marissa, I said be honest.
I am.
Because most of those Democrats didn't even turn the first page of
That's
it.
a problem.
And they just voted for
That's
it.
right.
Would
And
you had voted for that bill?
No, I would have said, I want time to read it, and if you make me vote on it without giving me, and I'm a fast reader, but in 2,100 pages in 24 hours, I'm not going to do that. Give me, I would have been generous. Give me 4 days to take a look at it, drill down into I'm an expert in reading
you
federal
subscribe
law.
to the basic premise. Were you in favor of health care?
No, I never said that.
Okay, no, I'm just saying.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Would you have subscribed to the basic idea to create more access to healthcare, a government takeover of the healthcare system?
Well, first of all, the Affordable Care Act is not a government takeover. It is a sellout to the insurance companies. It is forcing people to buy a product, a mediocre product at best, by a private entity, the insurance companies. It was written by the insurance companies for the insurance companies. And it is not going to do anything close to providing affordable care for 90% of the American people. And I know of which I speak because my father is a retired physician and my mother is a nurse. So I saw firsthand when I would watch my mother fight with insurance companies about which tests my father could perform in order to diagnose, for example, someone's cancer and save their life. And this person on the other end of the phone was an insurance representative, not a nurse, not an MD, no health care background whatsoever. So I knew when that bill was coming what was in that bill. It's a sellout to the insurance companies, and quite frankly, I think it's un-American to make the American people buy a product from a private company. I support a public option, and here's why. A public option is not socialized medicine, because I never have and never will support doctors being government employees. I know many doctors. My father was a doctor. He built his practice from the ground up. He did build that, just like I did build my law practice. I want doctors to be paid well for what they do because your health is on the line. And that can work if everybody is covered with health insurance. But the people can choose. They can choose the private health insurance, or the government is going to offer a public option. We're going to put a price. We're going to say you can buy into Medicare at X number of dollars. Whatever we figure out, the statisticians and the actuaries figure out an affordable and cost-effective price, okay? It's going to be something less than the current $10,000 that we pay for private health care, which is astronomical and going through the roof. They can buy the public option health care, so they're going to get Medicare coverage, or they can go into the private market. Now the private market, and everybody says, the Republicans say they want competition, so let the private insurance companies, if they think the government product is so bad and they think Medicare is bad, offer a better product. They're going to have to lower their prices, compete with the public option, and then everybody gets to choose what they want. That's my plan.
Were you in favor of Massachusetts' plan, the plan that was set by Mitt Romney in 2002? I mean, should states run their own programs, or should it be like
Absolutely,
in your model?
States. Yes.
In your model, it would be a state-run program, not a national program.
It could be both.
Okay.
You could have a federal
So
public
Medicare
option,
would be national,
right? And you could have if a state wants, as we do across the country, if states want to do better than the federal program, then they absolutely can.
Because right now, people are finding as they sign up, some are getting, people who never had health care before, are getting access to health care.
Right.
Some people are paying slightly less for insurance that they don't, who knows what it's going to amount to.
Right.
But a lot of people are actually paying more
Yes, they are.
for health insurance and getting a lot more services that they don't really need
Right.
than when they had their private plan, which the president says is no longer good for them.
Right. Well,
and yet they were on those plans.
And Massachusetts has the highest health care premiums now in the country.
Yeah.
So Mitt
And we'll be
Romney's
butting
plan,
up against that luxury tax in a couple of years, which
Right.
we didn't get any exemption for.
it hasn't worked out so well for the state and for voters
So
of the Commonwealth.
Obamacare is here to stay. You're not going to vote to repeal it if you go to.
We're going to vote to fix it. We're going
Okay,
to put
fix
some,
it.
yeah. Or we can put, we can implement. You can have the two plans juxtaposed against each other, and we can offer the public option. If people are in the exchanges with the Affordable Care Act and they want to stay, they can. We're going to just. It's about choice. It's about offering choice to the American people to stop this juggernaut of the insurance companies, because you know what would have offered affordable health care more than this act is the Department of Justice doing its job and breaking up the monopolies of the insurance companies. And we don't have to make this up as we go along. We have precedent for that. I mean, you know, history, see Teddy Roosevelt, see Trust Busters, see Standard Oil, right? Ma Bell, and the like. So when you have a juggernaut of all these companies, you know, coalescing into one conglomerate, they're price fixing. They're breaking our American antitrust law, and let the Department of Justice sort it out. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
Well,
So I'd like to see a little more action from the Department of Justice, whether it's insurance companies or banks or somebody or whoever else is monopolizing.
So if we continue on this course and nothing is done, where do you see the healthcare industry going in the United States? Say 5 years, 10 years.
I see employers cutting out of the system, which will then leave everybody, you know, pretty much in the market for the exchanges. And I see, so once the employers cut out, it will go so high, it will reach a tipping point, and employers would just cry uncle and say, we're out. That leaves everybody to go into the exchanges, and then what's going to happen when they have when the insurance companies' prices up, and we're going to have less affordable health care. That's where because there's no incentive for the insurance companies to lower their prices, because they will have everybody in one pool, and that's a recipe for disaster. And sorry, one more thing, Jim. You're going to see an exacerbation of the current problem, which is primary care physicians totally getting out of the business of medicine. My dad would never practice in this environment because he used to take 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. When you have people with very complicated medical histories, you can't diagnose that in 5 minutes. Just like when somebody walks in my door and they have a very complicated asylum, torture victim story to tell, I can't whiz them in and out in 10 minutes. It's about quality of care. But we don't have health care in this country. We have health business. And it's driving good doctors out of the system. And that's only going to become worse if the insurance companies are allowed to continue on this path.
The incumbent that holds the seat, Councilman John Taney, he voted for the Health Care Act. He had no questions. He raised no questions about it.
That's right.
And he's been a staunch advocate. Even though there was a medical device tax that hurt some of our businesses, he's really, I think he wrote a letter, he signed his name to a letter, asked the president to look at it, but we didn't win any real exemption to it.
Right.
What do you feel about that medical device tax? So you think that's a fit?
Yes.
So you'd vote to get that right out of the...
Yes, I would.
Okay.
You want companies that are in the district to engage in innovation and to be able to bring these products to market, and they're life-saving products. So.
Where else do you differ with the incumbent on other issues?
Sorry, Jim. I just want to make certain that this, in full disclosure, my husband works for one of the companies, so I just want there to be
What company?
Philips Electronics. So, but.
Well, he's got to make a living.
Well, I've had this position.
At least he's in the private sector, right?
I just want there to be full disclosure, because I can see the opposition research coming out and saying, oh, well, you know, her husband works for Philips, and of course they are a very big medical device creator and marketer. But they actually, they're a corporation, and yes, they're a big corporation, but they're one of those corporations that actually makes things and does things, not like the financial industry or Wall Street or K Street corporations that just sort of shuffle money around. So it's not necessarily that big is always bad. When you have corporations that are large and that actually make good products, you don't want to start taxing them at an inopportune rate, because then that will stifle their business. So and it will leave the 6th district with less jobs. So he's only been there for a year, and I've had these positions for long before he worked for them. So.
Well, I mean, you talk about jobs. I mean, it's very important to people in the 6th District, even in the communities, Tewksbury, Wilmington, which you'd be representing
Yes.
here and stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, the big problem is their children are going to college. They're paying a lot of money to go to college. They're coming out with big debts, and then they're not finding the opportunities that the parents and people of their generation received. So you got rising tuitions, even at public colleges.
Yes, you do.
Okay, and debt.
Right.
So how do we fix that problem, or at least address it?
You have to change Congress first, because if there will be nothing changed in Main Street or at public universities, and on all the money that goes into those systems if you don't change the actors. I mean, these masters of the universe, as they see themselves, right, are down there in D.C. They're the millionaires our Congress people are the millionaires doing the bidding of these billionaires, the masters of the universe that rig the stock market, steal from every nook and cranny that there is in the private sector, and then ruin our economy. They ruined it, right? We had a big recession in 2008, right? Yes.
I don't think anybody's gone to jail. Has anybody gone to jail for that?
Not to my knowledge. Not any big ones, anyhow. And this happened on Tierney's watch. They ruined our economy on his watch. And don't even begin with excuses that our party wasn't in control. Because if all you can say is it's the other guy's fault, it's the other party's fault, then get out and let someone else clean house and do the job. Because this is no excuses. John Tierney is not just our representative, he's our employee. And we reserve the right and the privilege to fire our employees who are not delivering for the district. Who are not, and that if you've been there for 17 years and employment is mediocre, we're losing jobs on Main Street. The economy was destroyed by these so-called masters of the universe. On your watch, you are not delivering for the district. So,
are there any particular issues that you take strong opposition with Mr. Tierney, Congressman Tierney, and
I do.
besides some of the things we've already
Oh,
discussed?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about privacy for a little bit, Jim.
We've got a few
Okay.
minutes left.
Okay.
So give me 2 or 3 of the top.
Privacy. So John Tierney sits on the National Security, Homeland Defense, and Foreign Operations Subcommittee. They can make they can make the names really long, but they don't affect anything that actually helps us out here in the real world. He serves on that subcommittee, okay? Where was he when the Bush administration was violating our rights as U.S. citizens and spying on us? And let's be clear, this spying is not about keeping track of crimes Americans are committing. It's about invading our privacy. And not until Congress, the members of Congress, found out that they themselves were being spied upon did they do something about it. And if my opponent says that he didn't know about it, well, that's a big problem because he's on the very subcommittee that's supposed to oversee this. So I have a big problem. Where is he? He is especially responsible. And again, I brook no excuses because I can't in my business say to my client, well, sorry, I lost your case. Now you're going to be deported and you're going to be killed in your home country because they don't, because they kill gay people or they kill women, as a matter of course. It's a zero-sum game for me when I represent somebody in a life-threatening situation. This is a zero-sum game for Congress because they're dealing with our lives. And we're the boss as the people. We are their boss. And I do not think that if you sit on this subcommittee and you didn't do something to tell the American people about the privacy and you say you didn't know about it, again, you're not doing your job.
Okay, so what is the compromise? You're on that committee.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to shut down the NSA. What would you do?
I'm going to go to the president who's in my own party and say, cut this out and respect the Constitution. No, we're